videos from other classes for TVW, you already know kind of what's going to happen. There will be people, you know, the good news is you don't have to leave your high school at dark 30. You get to leave at a decent time. You will all climb on a bus and you will all tootle down the freeways, whether it's 405 and 5 to Olympia, and you'll get off and you'll probably park near the Winged Victory statue where the bus parks, and I'll meet you there, and then we'll walk up to the hearing room, and we'll have all of you sign in electronically, and then whatever team of you is testifying on the bill will testify, and basically you'll have no more than 10 minutes. So be ready to speak for 3 minutes or so per person, okay?
All right.
And you'll be the first bill called up probably. And then the staff will report on the bill, and they'll give their summary, and then the prime sponsor will speak to the bill, and then they'll call up testimony. They'll probably call you guys up next, and then you may get questions about, you know, why did you want to do the bill? What are the things you want to do? And that'll be it. And I usually do a post brief on the hearing after we're done. And then you're free to, you know, do whatever you guys do. Often, you know, we give you a tour of the campus. If you have, how many of you have never been to the state capitol building? Show of hands, please. Most of you. Okay. It's a pretty cool building on the inside. It was built in 1927. It's got a lot of marble, a lot of shiny stuff, and a lot of history. It's all right. So are you guys ready? Do you have a presentation?
Yeah, the only thing we don't have is like something to like give to them, like a printout or a pamphlet. And we were thinking, like, should we do that, or ideas for that?
Yeah, go ahead and do that. No more than one piece of paper, two-sided.
All right.
Not a lot of detail. Some facts, you know, if your high school is currently composting, you know, an example of that, I would have a paragraph in there that this is similar to the bill that was introduced last year. And this is a much more voluntary bill. We're trying to increase participation. And then also some facts about what's happening at your school. And that, you know, just very simple. I mean, there's no need to make a PowerPoint or anything else. You'll need about 30 copies of that, so you have enough for the committee and the staff.
All right.
Sounds good. Last year, I know they made a PowerPoint, and then it didn't end up, I think, working during the actual hearing, and so
the members got the PowerPoint privately. They just didn't play it during the hearing.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So there's no need for any like visual or anything like that during.
As long as you're tight, yeah. And if you have a written statement for the committee, go ahead and write that up separately, and then provide that with your one pager. What would be?
We'll write that. Okay.
Would be, the written statement would be, "Hi, you know, we're the class from Lake Washington High School.
Yeah.
Go Gooey Ducks. You know, go Vikings. You're Vikings, right?
No.
Kangaroos.
The Kangaroos. Roger Goodman is in the house, state representative. He's wired up here and get ready to speak. So just a one pager explaining your support for the bill and where it came from and the history. And that statement, along with your verbal testimony, is all that is required at this time. Next to me, if you haven't met him and your previous appearances for your class, he is, you know, a well-known legislator, chairs a committee or two, works on law and justice issues, cares about the bill.
Thank you.
And is an all-around good guy, and that's Roger Goodman, and he's now wired in. Want to say hi?
Well, hello everybody again. Good to see you all.
Hello.
Hi, Representative Goodman.
Now I have to live up to what he just said about me.
Hey, look, next to me, you're at least 10 pounds lighter.
So what are we doing today?
We are talking about tomorrow's hearing there before the House Education Committee for their bill 6168, which is the composting bill, one that we were trying to get ready in the House, but we didn't have enough time, so we didn't run a House companion, which is my fault.
So the Senate bill has come over?
No, the Senate bill is being heard tomorrow.
In the Senate?
In the Senate.
Okay, sorry.
But before cutoff, we have a shot of getting out.
Great. Oh, that's great. That's great. So I actually let the main composting company in our area, Cedar Grove, is very excited about this. And I also talked to them, by the way, about, I'm not sure if any of you are in the Environment Club, but from what I understand, you are you have a composting idea for the spring to do a garden or whatever, I just want to let you know that Cedar Grove is very interested in helping to finance that. So,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Oh,
so
Hey,
I'll be back with you. My daughter Vivian is in the environment club too, so she told me about that. So, switching topics a little bit, it's one of the presentations that one of your groups made about Indigenous Peoples Day. And I don't know where that bill is.
That bill's in rules. It got
Is
out of
it? Great. Okay,
it's
so
ready to go to the floor.
so the bill replaces Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, and the bill has been voted out of committee and will probably come to the floor of the House, and we'll vote on it. So I'm really excited about that. That we might be able to replace. You know, a holiday celebrating a guy who sort of raped and pillaged and exploited and with what it really ought to be about. And so I'm not sure who among you in that group, if you could maybe raise your hands. Yeah. So, congratulations, you got it done, sort of. I mean, but no, I'm very happy to see that happen.
So is it left both the Senate and the House, or is it just the House right now, and then we'll be going to the Senate?
So we are in the first third of the legislative session, and so we're just hearing House bills in the House, Senate bills in the Senate, and so it's the House bill in the House still, and it hasn't come to the House floor yet, and then it goes over to the Senate. So there's no Senate action on it yet, and I don't know if there's a companion bill in the Senate, but I do know that the House bill is moving, so I'm very encouraged by that.
Good.
I'm going to have you take a moment because you've been a committee chair and you know the mechanics of could you explain to the class exactly, you know, what a committee chair does versus, you know, what, you know, yes, at times you're the all-powerful Oz at times, but for the most part, you're actually managing other people's interests and trying to get a lot of people's needs addressed. Could you walk them through that process informally?
So I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and that has jurisdiction over our criminal justice system. I told you a little bit about this when I was in front of your class. And so quite a number of bills. We're probably towards the top of the number of bills that are referred after they're introduced. The majority leader, sort of the parliamentarian, refers the bills by topic to committee, and I get a lot of bills. And it really is up to me to hear them or not hear them, to bring them up for a vote or not, to amend them. Some chairs are pretty autocratic and don't consult other members and just sort of dictate things. I'm exactly the opposite. I like to, irrespective of Democrats, Republicans, I like to bring folks together and talk about whether we should hear bills. There are some things that I just am not going to contemplate. I think the war on drugs was a disaster, and so any bill that gets tough on, so for instance, there have been some bills introduced this year that criminalize the use of drugs around children. And this just sounds so war on drugs to me that I think that, you know, parents need to be responsible for their children, but I don't want to criminalize what's going on in the home there. We do already actually criminalize the cooking of methamphetamine in front of children, but that's actually more of a health hazard. You know, it's like they're breathing in the stuff right there. So, but most bills I have held hearings on. So we do sort of a two-step process. We hold a hearing on the bill, and then if we have a consensus or if we have a majority, then we will bring it up for a vote. And we're now at the stage of voting because we have these deadlines. We call them cutoffs, and the cutoff for my committee is tomorrow, at the end of the day tomorrow. And so I got to get all the House bills out of my committee by tomorrow, otherwise they die. I've made a few decisions in the last few days not to bring bills up for votes. Not many, but I've had to say no, and I want everybody to love me, so it's actually kind of hard to say no. You know, politicians, we're all narcissistic. So,
but other people could say no to you. I mean, it's a two-way street.
I found it very interesting. I mean, this is my 12th year, and in the beginning, and I wasn't a chair in the beginning, but I've been a chair now for, I think, 5 years. I was just afraid to say no to anybody. Like, well, I'll think about it. And people don't like that. They want to know yes or no. And the other thing is when I say, sorry, I'm you know, this bill's not ready for prime time, or I just can't support this bill, the bill sponsor or the lobbyists who are interested in it, they say, oh, okay, instead of like, what's wrong with you? So it's very interesting that I haven't had the sort of negative response that I was afraid of. And I'm also being honest with them. So there are a couple of bills, one in particular. How many of you have ever played CSGO, Counter-Strike Global Offensive?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Counter-Strike is the new edition, came out about, I don't know, 4 years ago, and you can decorate your weapons with skins or sort of attractive coverings. And some of these skins are rare, and a market has developed for them it's a Valve game. A market has Steam or whatever, where there's gambling going on, buying and trading and bidding on skins, but it's sort of a dark corner of the web. It's not on the platform itself where the game is played. We're talking about a $5 billion gambling market for skins for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And it's mostly kids your age and younger, and you know, using your parents' credit cards, and it goes into the thousands of dollars and stuff. So this is a problem we need to get a handle on, and it's very interesting, the politics here. So our tribes, our Indian tribes, really want to make sure that there isn't any illegal gambling going on, because the casinos are a great source of revenue for them, and we want that to be heavily regulated. So they don't want this gambling going on, particularly, you know, a lot of it's offshore sites. On the other side, we have Microsoft, Nintendo, Valve itself, Big Fish. These are the publishers of these games, who are afraid that they're going to get caught up in this and be charged with crimes that they really have no control over, because these are sites where the gambling's taking place, and it's not their own platform. So had a hearing on it, and it's just not ready. We have to talk about this, try to figure out how to protect kids who actually get addicted to gambling skins online. I didn't even know about this till 10 days ago. But these are first-person shooter games. They're actually rated M. You shouldn't be playing them anyway, but whatever.
He's not going to turn you in. Don't
yeah.
worry about it.
Well, that was actually a really interesting issue, because there was a sort of a, within that overall problem, there was a few sort of popular, I guess, online presences who play Counter-Strike and stream and, you know, post videos and sort of make money off producing content from Counter-Strike, that created a couple of websites themselves, and then to their when they would produce content, they would sort of stream themselves or post videos of themselves winning off of the website that they made, and not tell people that they were sort of owned the website, and so just sort of to perpetuate traffic there through their sort of outreach. And then they got caught and banned from the game. And I think that that scandal is sort of part of the reason why these larger companies are afraid to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, there's also maybe copyright issues there too, as I think about it. But anyway, so politically, we've got sort of Microsoft on one side, and I represent about 35,000 people who work for Microsoft. So I represent 140,000 people in my district, 35,000 of whom work for Microsoft. So it's kind of a warped population that I represent. And I shouldn't use that word, but whatever. And so I kind of do what Microsoft wants, right? So they don't want to be exposed to liability that really isn't theirs. And then I really also support the tribes, because the tribes really need revenue from the casinos to help improve their communities. So I'm stuck between, the tech world and the tribes, both of whom I support. But the substance of the bill is just not ready. We're just not ready. So I'm going to be convening, after we're out of session this year, over the summer, a way to try to figure this out so that we can get a handle on this teen gambling problem without unduly burdening the publishers, the game producers, with criminal liability. It's a fascinating problem. So I said no today to the tribes, and they're like pushing a little bit, like, no, this is a really serious problem. And I said no again, and they finally relented, Anyway, I haven't been harmed, but that's just an example of a bill that is not ready for prime time. It's not mature enough. It hasn't been worked. We haven't brought all of the potential interests or stakeholders around the table. I'll give you another example of a bill that is not going to be reported out. We have it's off the coast of Tacoma or Steilacoom. It's called McNeil Island. It's an island that used to be a prison and is now, it's not a prison, it's called the Special Commitment Center. So someone who's committed a really awful sex offense, they are convicted, they go to prison, they serve their time, and then they get out, but they're still like pretty dangerous, and they probably shouldn't be in the community. We have a civil process, so after the criminal process, where you can be brought before a court and deemed a sexually violent predator, which is like the most awful title you could imagine to give somebody. Hi, I'm a sexually violent predator, you know. And so it's the SVP program, and they put them on this island, McNeil Island, where their civil rights are respected. So they're not like sitting in cages, but they are separated from the population, and they're given treatment, and they have some freedom of movement, but they're on an island. So the problem is that when they get off the island, sounds like Survivor, yeah. They end up in Pierce County in the Tacoma area, and Pierce County doesn't want them because they are like, we don't want these people. Statistically, actually, it's very interesting that these sexually violent predators do not generally commit other crimes. Either they respond to treatment, or their recidivism rate or their reoffense rate is actually very low. So there's a bill that was introduced, and all of the sponsors of the bill are from Pierce County, from Tacoma and South Tacoma and Lakewood and those towns. And basically the bill, as you read between the lines, is get these people the hell out of Pierce County. But in the process, it violates their rights. It doesn't account for where treatment is available. There's all sorts of flaws with the bill. And so I'm not going to even bring it up for a vote, because it's a sort of a political move by the Pierce County folks to get these folks out. There are also other prisons in the area, and so prisoners tend to, Pierce County is sort of they receive a lot of people out of prisons and so forth. So this is an ongoing issue. So my very good friend, Christine Kilduff, who's a state representative from the 28th, which is Lakewood, Steilacoom, where the Special Commitment Center is, she and I work very closely. And she asked me today, you know, can we work on the bill, and, you know, can we move it out of committee? And I had to say no to her, a close friend, a fellow Democrat, because when the bill came up for a hearing in my committee, it was just savaged. I mean, all the testimony was against it. There was a pretty transparent effort by the Pierce County delegation to the legislature, just get these people out of Pierce County. So that was another difficult no, I had to say today. But I think it was
request, I feel like.
Sorry?
Reasonable request at the very least, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we can ever work this one out, actually. We do have written into the law, it says that those prisoners and people in the Special Commitment Center need to be returned to their county of origin, like where they're from. But if you're from, I don't know, some county, like some county far away that doesn't have any treatment resources, doesn't have any housing, doesn't have any services, then you're probably going to end up committing crimes again and coming back. And so it's this struggle between returning prisoners back to where they came from and maybe subjecting them to exposing them to the same conditions that led to their crimes, or releasing them into King County, where we live, or Pierce County, the more urbanized districts that have more resources for them. So that's an ongoing issue.
It's an interesting civil rights issue. I was going to add a little postscript. When I grew up in Spokane, Washington, and when I was in college and then later law school, there was a sex offender by the name of Kevin Coe. Kevin Coe was called the South Hill Rapist, and he went on a terror spree for 5 years, attacking and raping numerous women, and was arrested and first tried in 1981, 36 years ago. During that time, Don Brockett, the chief prosecutor for Spokane County, hypnotized witnesses to get, because of the traumatic nature of an assault like this, on any assault. I mean, we don't, just if you're assaulted and have a concussion, you may not be able to recall what happened without hypnotism or some deep therapy. Well, hypnotism wasn't accepted testimony in 1981. So Kevin Coe had most of his convictions tossed on appeal the first time. But then a couple of things happened. One, he attacked another woman while on bail. And two, his mother conspired to assassinate the Spokane County prosecutor. And normally, here's a pro tip. If you put an ad on Craigslist for an assassin, the first responder is probably a detective from the federal agency. So don't go there. Anyhow, so he went through an entire second round of trial and conviction and served 25 years at Walla Walla. And then he went to the Special Commitment Center in Monroe, where he resides to this day.
I see.
And it's been a long discussion in a lot of circles, for those of us who work in politics, of, well, when does he pay? You know, yes, he's completed his full sentence, but he's still a danger to the community. Yeah. His parents are dead. They're both, you know, there's no place for him to go. But I think with the lesson from us to draw from Representative Goodman's presentation is the following. Often I will go to Representative Goodman over the summer with, you know, I have this idea we need to work on. And he meets with the actual people that need the solution, that need the legislation. And we work on the concept and we take it to professional legislative staff and they begin to draft it into legislative language. And then often you will say to me, okay, Mike, who's going to hate this? And then we broaden the circle of people to be touched on to talk about the bill. Now with your bill tomorrow, one of the people that I briefed was Vicki Christopherson, who also does teach for TVW, but also represents Waste Management, which is the largest garbage company in the country. And they're okay with the bill. I don't know if she's going to sign in pro, but she's not going to come in against like she had to last year. Yeah,
if we're ever doing composting issues, you want to watch out for the waste haulers, the garbage folks, because there's a tension there. There's also a tension between waste and recycling. It's very contentious. These are sort of family-owned businesses, and they feel like there's a threat. You know, they're threatening their turf, literally. I can tell you some other issues related to waste management or to the waste hauling industry. They don't like us to establish separate recycling programs for like electronics, mattresses, phone books, cardboard boxes, you know, because that takes away from their waste stream and therefore cuts into their profits. And so it's a lot of what we do down here is about money, right? And so what's going to happen in tomorrow's hearing is probably going to be okay, because if the waste haulers are okay with this, then, you know, we'll probably make it through. I'm not sure what other objections there might be.
The last year's bill was the superintendent of public instruction. Sometimes government comes in, and often what Representative Goodman hears at the diocese, a city or county lobbyist or elected official will come and say, Representative Goodman, you know, House Bill 1234 is an unfunded mandate on King County, or an unfunded mandate on the city of Happyville, and you're just, you know, until you provide us the resources to provide this new service, we just can't do it. So there, you know, and sometimes the legislature is like, we write laws. That's our job. It's your job to administer your city. McCleary was a great example of the courts intervening and declaring a level of funding that they could never name a number. Yeah, it's like McCleary was like negotiating for an allowance from your dad, and you say, well, Dad, I really need $25 a week. And you're like, oh my God, I gave you 20. That's a 25% increase in your current allowance. What services am I getting in return for giving you $25 a week? It was a very circular argument for the legislature, because the legislature has doubled funding for K through 12 education. And in my time in Olympia, and this my first legislative session was 1983. My time here, I have seen not one, not two, 4 different standardized tests for kids to follow. We have districts where AP is like Issaquah and Bellevue. AP education is like standard for high school, college track. We put enormous pressures on you to get out with 24 credits under the state board. We don't give you a lot of room for any electives. So you have to be very strategic in the classes you take junior and senior year. And we tell you to take STEM, whatever the heck that is. I'm 56. I don't know. I believe in STEAM, by the way, right? Yeah. You know STEAM?
Yeah.
Arts, the STEAM, yeah, that's very important. So it's very difficult for the legislature to sometimes answer the imponderables, although that's a big part of their job. Yeah.
Well, actually, just so on the note of sort of speaking to the audience in terms of presenting our bill. I was wondering, maybe we could get the chance to just sort of, and I'm sure, not a lot of it's going to be new information just because we have seen the hearings.
Pretend we're the committee. What would you say tomorrow?
Yeah, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so just to walk it through.
You have 2 minutes or less, because that's the other thing too. So when I'm holding a hearing on a bill, a lot of people have signed up, and we are required to anyone who wants to testify. I mean, under our Constitution, must be given that opportunity. So we can't sort of invite people to testify. It could be crazy people, and we have a few. So we limit their testimony to, and I have a timer, so the little green light, yellow light, red light goes off. And so people need to be prepared when they come before my committee to testify very succinctly and very cogently, so that they're not sort of rambling on. And that's a skill you have to develop.
So let's do that. All right, we're going to start with you, and then you, and you'll say your name and where you're from, and you have give us 2 minutes of your best testimony. Begin.
I'm Milan Ketiel. I'm a senior at Lake Washington High School. Here to testify in favor of this composting, 6186, 6168. So from one of the most controversial points on last year's iteration of the bill was that it sort of mandated the implementation of the program. So I believe the superintendent of public instruction took issue with that in terms of, should a school or a district be unwilling to participate in the program just to take on the additional cost of adding a food waste collection program onto their garbage collection contract. We can't force them to do so. However, in speaking with a representative from Waste Management for the Pacific Northwest area, and in addition, this is the way that our school operates, is that we have a complementary food waste collection service just on the same contract as our garbage collection service, because it's sort of a mutually beneficial relationship where, as a school, we get to compost and we get to promote that sort of we get to promote composting to within the school to the students, and Waste Management.
We're going to wrap up, please. 30 seconds.
We feel that the financial benefits of the service outweigh the potential cost of providing the service, and this will incentivize this sort of pilot program to be promoted within the rest of the Washington State area.
That was well done. That was well done. Yeah.
When in doubt, if you don't want to recap the bill staff testimony, agree with the staff presentation if it's good.
Sure.
Go on to your point.
But what you did was you pointed out what the objections were and how we were addressing those objections. You don't have to go by like how the bill works, because that's already presented to us before we have the hearing. So that was good.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Erin Kelly, and I'm in support of this bill since with the environmental benefits that it provides. Since climate change is such a vital topic, with the effects of climate change ranging from sea level rise, soil erosion, ocean acidification in the Pacific Northwest specifically, which is something we're concerned about with our ocean, or soil erosion or increase of wildfire, melting of the ice caps. We think it's something very important to try and help to counteract. Compostable materials will naturally create carbon dioxide, but in landfills, they create methane gas. Methane gas is 25 times stronger than carbon dioxide in its power to heat the planet and contribute to climate change. So one of our main goals with this bill is diverting compostable materials from landfills to reduce the amount of methane that ends up in the atmosphere. Some waste plants try and counteract the amount of methane that gets out in the landfills, by capturing it and using it for renewable energy. But it's predicted only 20% of the gas is actually captured. So we think the best route would be to just remove the cause in the first place. And also, not only climate change, but removing or composting in general has lots of environmental benefits, like soil composition, which would help agriculture on eastern Washington, and then prevent ocean acidification on the west of Washington. So we think it's very important.
Great job, because that was really good to cite the science and the benefits of this. So each of you did something different. One addressed what the objections were and how to overcome that by changing the legislation. And then the other talked about, the scientific, it was all really well expressed, actually.
And it covers it in both ways.
Yeah.
Aaron, I would have you simplify your presentation a little bit, and then put the rest in a written statement.
Yeah, I have a written statement.
Sure, yeah,
that
we
was
do.
just what I was trying to recall.
As a chair, when I have someone testifying before my committee and they're reading a statement and not looking at me, it's not as persuasive. So you really do want to know. I wouldn't have a written thing, but bullet points. Just a phrase that reminds you what you want to say. So you may want to glance down. And so when I give speeches, actually these days when I give speeches, I don't even know what I'm going to say till I get up. But if it is something I'm a little bit less familiar with, I'll have bullet points, and then just look down at that phrase that reminds me of what I want to say. But eye contact and so that you know what you're talking about rather than just reading a statement.
And the one last bit of advice, have Mr. Dawson, if you have written statements that are electronically available, like Word documents, get them to me and I can communicate them to committee staff.
Yeah.
Committee staff will put it in the electronic bill books that the members reference. But you guys did a great job.
Yeah,
and I think, you're, how do I put this? You're not in a speech and debate or deck around. Okay. It's not competitive. The chair and the members want to give you a really calming and inviting environment to make a presentation. So it's important for you guys to understand.
Some chairs are friendlier than others. So like I because my committee deals with crime and some pretty awful stories. We're talking about people who've been killed and assaulted and raped, and so we have testimony about that. And people are very tearful and nervous, and they've traveled a long distance, and it's their family members that have been harmed. And so I do my very best to try to make them comfortable. And there's different ways to do that. Sometimes you can be like, thank you very much for your courage and coming forward and telling your story. Sometimes that makes it worse because they start thinking about it. And sometimes I'll be a little bit lighthearted about it and say, we have limited time. So when the light hits red, there's a little electric shock device in your chair, and we're going to make you, and they all laugh. And so that kind of calms them down so that they can talk what they're going to talk about.
And they're before Senator Wellman.
Senator Wellman is very friendly, and but anyway, and there are 3 different types of testimony we receive from citizens who have experiences that could lead to a piece of legislation, and that's actually, you kind of fall into that category. Someone like Michael, who is a lobbyist who knows how this place works, and so we rely on him for quick testimony to point out sort of what section and subsection we might need to fix. And then the third are experts, people who might be national or international experts in an area that's complex, which is sort of a larger topic, but not sort of the section by section, And all of that we really do rely on. It's the democratic process. I'm encouraged by this because we sit up there on the panel and we're receiving testimony, and we're actually listening because we don't know all these other bills. We need the experts and the people who have experienced things to tell us about it, so that we can refine the legislation and make it work. So
Sure.
Democracy in action.
And I thank you. So just to clarify, so tomorrow, Aaron and I, obviously, so we're not going to be the only people testifying. There's 2 more students who are in a different class period. So that's why just us 2 speaking to you currently. But the way that we were thinking of structuring it, so Sam Dorsey, another student who's going to be testifying, is sort of going to give an introduction and conclusion, address a little bit of the problems with last year's bill and how we've adjusted it. Not necessarily, like you mentioned, go through this year's bill because, you'll have it, but simply just address the differences. Sajina, another student, was going to address pros and cons of implementing this program. Of course, the bill doesn't mandate it, and so it's more of just going to be used as encouragement. I think we referred to it as a pilot program in a few of our speeches.
That's key. We don't want to mandate anything. I mean, I kind of do, but it's limited funds, and I mean, I've been trying to get domestic violence awareness into 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and the superintendent of public instruction says, I would love to do that too, but we don't have time. We got to, the students have to learn all this other stuff. So the idea of a pilot, making it discretionary, not mandatory, if the school can accommodate it, is very, legislators receive that very positively.
Yes, and then as we sort of did, I was going to talk about monetary benefits, and Aaron was going to talk about environmental benefits, sort of to serve as this is the potential motivation for, once this bill is in place, for sort of districts and schools to look at it and say, okay, this looks like, a good idea, something we can try, something that's available to us to look into and sort of
replicate
yes,
in
exactly.
other school districts. Just keep it brief though, because remember, we do this all the time, and so
Sure. Okay.
People who drone on or repeat themselves, that's another thing too, is each person who testifies should say something completely different from the other person rather than repeat.
And your panel structure does that.
That sounds good.
Great.
And help each other. All right.
Yes.
Make sure the 4 of you hook up before the hearing, like at noon or so, and in front of each other, go through your testimony one more time, and be okay to nudge your buddy when it's like, especially if they forgot something. Help each other out. The legislative committees like panel testimony because they can get a lot of data in 12 minutes.
Yeah, I'll call a panel up of 2 or 3 or sometimes 4. They'll have to pull normally 3 at the table, and then they all testify sort of on the same theme but different aspects of it, and it's very helpful to us. So
excellent. Thank you for your time, sir.
I got to go back and do the rest of my job, which I love. By the way,
I really appreciate it.
Class. So this is actually one of my fun parts. I don't know if I can, if Mr. Dawson, can I come back this like in May or something just to follow up?
Definitely. You're welcome back anytime.
All right. So I'll come back and we'll do a little debrief and I'll just keep talking at you. So.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll be in contact.
Okay.
You're also back on another Capital Classroom visit. If Michael doesn't mind as well, So yeah, we do these on Wednesdays. So.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely need to bring.
I got to get going here.
Senator Curter back,
Representative.
prime sponsor, especially if this bill starts moving through the process and gets out to the floor.
Yes. Definitely something we can do as well.
See you later.
So just one more question for you. So just so you know, we have about 85 kids coming down tomorrow. We'll get there prior around 12:30. Do a little look at. We may go look at the Hall of Justice real quickly. Just kind of go in, see what that's like, and then head to the Capitol building. Is there anything? I don't want to say kind of bribery wise, but anything special they should add to, especially Chairman Wellman, to kind of push for hey, can you please, we really want this to get out of the committee, or
if you guys want to honor the senator with a Lake Washington scarf or water bottle like you've given me in the years past, I'm sure it would be well received.
Okay, and then we would do that at the
drop that off at not at the committee hearing. We'll have you drop that off by her office.
Okay. As a little thank you.
Actually, also maybe the classic thank you for hearing our bill card. You guys always send me a really nice card thanking me for the help, and it's always lovely to hear from you. But if you do that for the prime sponsor, Senator Patty Curter, and for Senator Wellman, I think that would be well received because I am with the classes I work with, I'm trying to move you much more closer to mock courtroom, mock trial level of presentation so that this is actually useful in your future instead of, I went to Olympia once, and all I got was this stupid bag of mints. I want you to have something better than that. I'm glad that Representative Goodman could take some time. He gave you some really good input of how chairs operate and what to expect. Yeah. And he really does want, I think, Mr. Dawson, I'm afraid we're going to have to work up a bill for him next year.
Yes, and that's something that we can definitely do too.
All righty.
Work with him starting in May, and we'll have the summer and everything else. So
perfect.
Excellent. So, all right. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow.
All right, guys. They do have food down here, but I'll try to find a place for 80 of us to gather. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's kind of if we can do maybe the. Just briefly go into the Secretary of State to register for some voting.
Yeah, like we've done before.
Well, that'd be nice. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Rock is dead. Long live paper and scissors.